another Tracking Trends Thursday with Kristen Mason Coreas. Today is July 17th. I know that date, it is burned in my brain because it was my dad's birthday the other day, July 14th. Happy birthday, Dad, if you're watching. I actually didn't call yet. I'm such a bad daughter. I'm so sorry. But if you're watching, big shout out to my dad, whose birthday was the other day, July 14th. And today is July 17th. I stay busy a lot. And so here we are today, Thursday, to share with you what is happening in real estate. So interest rates have inched up just a little bit. And so they're at 6.75. That's the average for a 30-year fixed interest rate as of today, July 17th. That is a touch higher than it was last week and a touch lower than it was last year. A bit higher than the average that we've been at for the entire year. But yeah, I mean, we've basically been around here for much of the past year. I don't even remember now when we hit 6%, frankly. So most of the time I remember us being hovering here in the upper sixes. So that is one piece of stability in our market, at least one thing that we can kind of expect. In economic news, there's still some unpredictability here and some mixed information. So inflation data for June showed higher prices on goods like coffee and furniture, things that, especially coffee, things that people buy a lot. So that is believed to be related to tariffs impacting and actually, hitting the ground now. However, retail sales rebounded more than expected in June. And I'm not understanding why they're saying here that that increase is reflected as a result of tariff exposed products. So I'm not sure why there'd be more retail sales as a result of higher tariffs, but so that's some mixed information there. Basically, what I'm seeing is prices going up as a result of tariffs hitting the ground. And wholesale prices actually showed no change, though. So some mixed news there in terms of what is happening on the ground of in the grocery stores, basically, right, with prices. In regards to what's happening nationally with home prices and home sales, NAHB is the National Association of Home Builders, reports that home builders building new homes are slashing prices at the fastest pace in 3 years because they're seeing a weakening of buyer demand. So that's what home builders of new homes. We don't have a lot of that in this area. In those closer in suburbs, we don't have a lot of new construction, some of it. And confidence has remained in negative territory for 15 months. Let's see, the budget, the recently passed budget boosted builder confidence slightly. So again, some mixed news there that home builders are slashing prices, but their confidence increased slightly as a result of the passing of the budget bill. Housing inventory is up 30% year over year. That is a trend we are also seeing in our area that you'll see continue to show through the data here. So nearly 1/3 of major U.S. housing markets are seeing falling home prices. That is not so unexpected from my perspective. If inventory continues to increase and buyer demand decreases, we should see a drop in prices. Not 100% seeing that in our market just yet, but may be coming. In the Mid-Atlantic region, which includes Virginia, DC, Maryland, Pennsylvania, West Virginia, Delaware, and New Jersey, more of the same that we've been seeing. Contract times are slower overall. You're going to see a big number coming up here in our DC metro area. And showings are rising. So actually that is something we have been seeing. So more showings may be related to more inventory, right? If there's more homes out there, then so that kind of correlates. More homes, more buyers, but then we got to find out how many people are actually writing contracts. So we do need more showings. We do need more buyers with that continued increase in inventory to be able to maintain a stable market. Especially here in the Washington metro area, showings have been higher year over year throughout the summer. So that is good news for our market. And as I was talking about, more inventory provides more options for buyers. An interesting point is that supply in most markets is actually still lower than it was in 2019. So even though inventory has been increasing, we didn't have enough inventory for a really long time. And so that's why I guess, our market is still relatively stable because we still have less inventory than in 2019. For the larger DC metro area here, so showings are up year over year and week over week. Now we're looking at the week after 4th of July. So that is why you can see a big number of 28% more showings than the week before. I talk about this a lot, but this data here really supports what I tell my clients, especially sellers. Don't expect a lot of buyer activity on a holiday weekend. Most people go enjoy the holiday and then they come back. You can see that they came back here. Purchase contracts were down year over year and week over week. That is actually surprising that the contracts are down week over week, especially compared to a holiday week. We would normally see contracts up after the holiday week. So that's a little surprising. Time to contract, 33 days. This number continues to surprise me. That is the biggest number, the longest time I think I have seen in my 15 years of doing this. That amount of time to go from on the market to under contract, 33 days, up 7 days from a year ago, up 4 days from a week ago. And new listing inventory is up 6% year over year and 38% week over week. You'll see that again in our hyperlocal data. That trend continues. That, again, smart sellers working with good listing agents probably decided not to list during the holiday week and then did come on the following week. List price is down a touch year over year and up week over week, 3% week over week. Active listings up 37% year over year and only 6% week over week. That's the larger DC metro area. For our hyper local market, which includes Arlington, Alexandria, Fairfax, and Falls Church, where we do most of our business at Homes by Mason, this shows us here that we did have more new listings, almost double. You can see the blue line compared to the week before. So almost double the listings. So just like in that previous chart that we looked at, sellers perhaps didn't list the week of 4th of July, but then came on after the week of the 4th of July. And also under contracts are higher than they were the week before versus the last chart, which was down compared to the week before. So both listings and contracts are up week over week for our hyperlocal area. Days on market is down a few days in our market, and that interest rate continues to be one stable thing that we can count on for now. So year over year and demand to supply in our hyperlocal market, look at these big jumps. So this is supply compared to last year. So this is a bit of a surprise just to see such a big jump. I mean, more than 150% increase in supply compared to last year at the same time. So a lot more listings than again, and that may be in our hyperlocal area related to perhaps people who are retiring early and leaving their jobs for one reason or another, deciding to leave the area. So we may continue to see an increase in inventory as we move forward this year. And the green line is contracts also, though, higher than the year before. So that's good news that we have more contracts than the year before in a hyperlocal area, and the demand to supply ratio is less because there were so many. Again, this is a measure of how many contracts compared to new listings. There were so many new listings that demand to supply ratio is lower, about, around, I think it was around 60% here. So we've got inventory left over here because so many came on the market this past week. So this is week over week data for our hyperlocal market. So supply week over week, again, a big jump here, more than 100% increase in inventory. But last week it was down week over week. So again, this is after the holiday week, more listings came on the market, and there were also more contracts week over week in our hyperlocal area. So looking back, some ups and downs, right? Week over week data is just sometimes it's up, sometimes it's down. So the year-over-year data, we are mostly up throughout the year in terms of both inventory and contracts, except for last week we were down. So that is your data for this week, July 17th. And anytime you want to take a closer look at the data and try to understand how it impacts you and your decisions, please reach out. You can call me or text me at 571-210-1866 or email me at kristen@homesbymason.com, or down below here, wherever you're watching this, you should find a link if you want to actually just get on my calendar, find a time that works for you on my calendar, and we can connect. So thanks for watching and have a great weekend.